Hey YouTube, this is a video about casino gambling. The goal is to put ourselves in the best possible position to keep as much of our money as possible when the gambling's done. Specifically, we want to prevent the IRS from taxing our losses and to limit the tax on our gains. And we also are going to talk about limiting damage to Social Security benefits. Some folks who receive Social Security benefits and are gambling can turn their Social Security benefits from 0% taxable to 85% taxable. And that's even if they lose at the casino at the end of the day. No one's talking about it, but we're going to cover that, and we're going to cover some techniques to keep the tax consequences of gambling at a casino to a minimum. Now, just some basics here. Gross income under the tax code is broadly defined. It includes income from any source. So any sort of revenue that's coming into you is gross income, and that means taxable income. And if your gambling income then is gross income, it's taxable, and you'll have to report it at the end of the year. So you need a plan for that, and we just need to have something in the back of our mind when we're going into a casino because we need a way to measure how much gambling income we have, because we know we'll have to report it. And this can be a very difficult concept, especially if we're going gambling more than once or twice in the course of a year. So the concept of session play becomes very important, and I'm going to use one case to demonstrate that, LaPlante v. Commissioner. Miss LaPlante was a retired individual who gambled numerous times during the course of the year. She reported that she had won $4,000 at the casino. The IRS position was that she had actually won $30,170, but lost $30,170 as well. However, the IRS position was not very favorable for Miss LaPlante, even though you might think that the wins and the losses would cancel each other out, but that's not really what happens. So we'll discuss that, we'll discuss the result and what we can do specifically to avoid the harsh consequences that Ms. LaPlante discovered after her tax court case. Okay, so here are the parties' positions. The IRS again argued that Ms. LaPlante had gains of $30,170 and losses of $30,170. Everyone agreed that Ms. LaPlante, over the course of the year, had lost money. But the IRS was relying on W-2 forms. When you win a large amount at the casino, in this case it was $1,200. Every time you had a jackpot of $1,200 or more, a W-2 would be generated. And in reality, you could have a few of those during the course of one day, but walk out at the end of the day having lost if you continued to play. And that was generally the case with Ms. LaPlante. But the IRS did have contemporaneously created documents. On the other hand, Ms. LaPlante argued that on one occasion she had an $8,000 jackpot. The Foxwoods Casino had withheld 25%, or $2,000, and she left the casino with $2,000. She argued credibly that, or testified credibly that the other $4,000 had been lost during the course of the evening. However, even though Ms. LaPlante had some friends with her at the casino, they didn't show up to the trial and they didn't testify. This was Ms. LaPlante's attorney's first trial. That came out in the transcript. It appears in the transcript, not really in the opinion. But perhaps he had more experience, he might have had the friends testify as to what they saw. Ms. LaPlante could have argued that each day was a different session, and that was generally the gist that the court came up with. You don't tax each particular spin of the slot machine or individual hand at the blackjack table, but you measure the outcome of each session. And typically a day could be one session, or you could have different periods of time depending on facts and circumstances and the evidence available. In this case, though, because Miss LaPlante really did not have very strong evidence, even though perhaps other evidence was available to her, the IRS's W-2 forms sort of carried the day. So the result here was that the IRS prevailed, and Miss LaPlante is going to have a gain of $30,170, and that will affect her adjusted gross income, and you'll see that that's a problem. So even though she's going to be entitled to losses of $30,170, that'll be worse than if she simply would have had that one gain. Now we'll take a look at Ms. LaPlante's Social Security income and the results of this tax court case. The income of $22,758, only $86.31 would have been taxable. However, the $30,170 turned out to be the better supported number for the gambling winnings. And that means a much larger percentage, 85% of the Social Security income becomes taxable income. And Ms. LaPlante had to pay $1,808. Had she had better evidence of her losses, probably each day was a loss, other than the one day with the $8,000 jackpot, she might have had a much better result. Okay, now we'll just briefly look at a second case, Shallenberger. In Shallenberger, a taxpayer, husband and wife, went to the casino and won $2,000 playing slot machines. That jackpot generated, of course, a W-2 form that the IRS relied on. However, the taxpayers had gone to the bank just before the casino and withdrew $500 from their accounts. They had the bank statements to show that, and they also had a bank statement to show that they made a $1,600 deposit after leaving the casino. They credibly testified that they lost $400 after the $2,000 spin. So they were left with sort of a gain of $1,600 minus $500 that they started with. So overall, a taxable gain of $1,100. That's a better result than LaPlante had because she didn't have contemporaneous documentation. So in this case, the IRS was not able to prevail with just a W-2 form issued by the casino. So these cases teach us three basic lessons about gambling and tax. You're going to be taxed primarily on the outcome of a session, whether it's a gain or a loss. And a session is not going to be a full year, but instead it's going to be some other period of time. Maybe when you cash your tokens in or your chips in, maybe it's the end of a gambling trip. The second lesson is that we report gain and loss separately. All of the gains will go together in the miscellaneous income category. And if you can deduct any losses at all, it'll be itemized deductions. And so you'll need more losses than your standard deduction. And for Shallenberger, that was hard to do. Now, the third lesson is to document your gains and losses. We saw with Shallenberger the contemporaneous banking records that showed a withdrawal prior to going to the casino and a $1,600 deposit after leaving the casino. That indicated an $1,100 gain, and that was better evidence than the IRS W-2 form that showed a $2,000 win. So let's look at how we can document the gains or losses from our gambling session. I would recommend starting at the casino ATM or using a bank very close to the casino that'll suggest you use the money for gambling purposes. And keep the receipt. The receipt's going to go in an envelope. I recommend that you use a white colored normal business sized envelope, and you'll put your ATM receipt inside the envelope, and this will help you keep all of your gambling records together. So if you do get an audit after you file a return, you'll be probably in good shape. So you'll take the envelope with you to the different slot machines or tables that you play, and you want to write down the results then at these different tables or slot machines. And the first thing that you want to make sure that you do is actually write down on the envelope the number of the table that you're playing at, or the number of the slot machine. So, for example, a roulette table might have a name or a number. In this case, let's say it's R217. You might just see a sign that says R217. So write that down. And then make a note about your starting cash situation, or how much you have in chips. So, for example, if you start off with $200 and then you left with $225, you're going to make two separate entries. You know, you're starting at 200, and then when you leave, just quickly jot down 225. The pit boss won't get upset because you made a quick note. And then don't forget the date. The date is going to be very important, and that'll help you determine the different sessions. Okay, thanks YouTube for watching. If you have any sort of general questions, you can put those in the comment section. Otherwise, send anything that's a little more personal to you by email, manning8channel@gmail.com. Thanks.